Amazing. Good morning, good afternoon. I don't know where you are, but I'm in San Francisco. So I thought, well, in fact, I promised I would make this video for you. So here's the book. What to say when you talk to yourself. As some of you can tell, I've lost my voice. I've been partying over here. I just thought, in fact, let me give you a quick view actually of this lovely house that we're staying in. Some of you might not know me. My name's TJ. I'm an avid book reader. I came across the idea of reading to improve yourself when I read a book called The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy many years ago. He said he attributed his wealth and his growth to discovering that you could learn what other people knew by reading their books, attending seminars, attending events, and pretty much picking their brains. You see, the reason why I love reading is because I might not get the chance to pick Bill Gates' brain. I might not get the chance to pick someone like Mark Zuckerberg's brain. But the fact is, a lot of times they put their brain down on paper and we get the chance to get some insight and to pull some knowledge from them. So, as some of you might know, this is one of my favorite books in the world. I believe that nobody should start reading, should start investing, should start doing anything until they discover some fundamental truths about themselves. So the truths you might discover about yourself may not be really what you wanted to hear, but at least it wakes you up. There are some truths about ourselves regarding our mindsets that is stopping us from making money. There's no point jumping into every single investment opportunity or every single business opportunity when you don't know whether you're ready to receive that. You see, receiving money is an interesting thing because you have to be ready to receive. And that's why you see people that win the lottery. Yes, they've been given some money. Yes, they've got wealth, but they can never keep it. Why? Because there are certain things in their mind, there are certain mindsets, there are certain beliefs that they have about themselves and about money and about wealth that affect how we deal with money. So there's no point trying to learn about money unless you discover some information about yourself. A number of us are not ready to receive money because if we got that money, we would blow it. And that's why you see some people who they make a bunch of money and then the next day they don't have it. Or you might even get a pay rise and instead of saving that small bit, you spend it because there's something within you that's stopping you from growing. So I want to deal with that by talking about things in this book. Now, I recommend, if you haven't got this book already, you need to get yourself the book immediately. Drop everything that you're doing, pick up this book. Now, I want to dig deep into it, and I'm going to jump back and forth. And over time, these videos will get better. There will be a lot more interaction. But again, I didn't know how I wanted this book club to be. I didn't want it to be all about me, but I really wanted to get you guys started off with this book. So first and foremost, they don't pay me for this. They don't pay me for this book. I love this book. I recommend this book, and I force every single one of my trainees and every single one of my mentees to buy this book. As I said, I'm a coach. There's no point of me coaching you on how to better your life or how to improve your life if we don't know what's really been going on within yourself. And this book will expose the truth, will expose what you are, who you are, where you stand on relationships, what's going on in your life, because every single thing that you've said, that you've done, and every single place that you are today is an amalgamation. I love that word. That's a big word. Well, for some of you it's not big, but for me it's a big word. It's an amalgamation of the thoughts, of the ideas, of the mind frame, of the mindset that we've developed over time. I don't want to be crude, I don't want to be rude, but I'm going to be honest. The amount of money you have in your account, if it's plus, if it's minus, is simply because of what you believe about yourself and about money. So this book starts off with a very, very strong hit. It talks about, so let's go straight into chapter 1. It talks about a standard, an average household. As a child, I think it's from the age of 0 up until 18, you are told no at least 148,000 times. But this becomes clearer once you start to understand that our mind is a computer. Our mind is like a sieve. So whatever we put into it is what it's going to give back to us. But we'll come into that later. But just to understand how powerful this is, for the last 18 years, your most impressionable, your most susceptible years, where your mind is a phone, where you're soaking in information, where you're learning about yourself, at that point, you've been told, no, you can't do this. Who do you think you are? How dare you think you can do this? And guess what that does? that sets up the frame, that sets up the base, that sets up the foundation for who you are today. I'm not saying as parents, hey, listen, as parents, I'm not a parent, so I can't tell you how to raise your kids. But believe me, once you read this book, the way you think you're going to be a parent or the way you are a parent will completely change. Because you have to understand that as a parent, and I'm talking to parents now, as a parent, everything you teach your child is from your perspective. It's from your understanding. And a lot of times it's from a limited place. Because you might say to your child, hey, don't do that because of this. But that because of this was because you couldn't do it. So you've imposed that fear, you've imposed that limitation on that child. And guess what that child does? They carry that same limitation from day one up until they read a book such as this, and they start to rewire and rechange and reimagine a different life and a different mind frame. So let's go back into this. 148,000 times you were told, no, you cannot do this. No, you cannot do this. So I want you to imagine this. Imagine you're in a torture chamber and someone keeps repeating the same thing to you over and over and over. And again, you guys will notice that I watch a lot of like spy and crime movies as well, because a lot of my examples will be based around that. So let's imagine you've been kidnapped. You were a spy and you've been kidnapped, and they tied you up in this dungeon, and they said, listen, until you say to us that you are a spy, we're not going to let you go. And then they brainwash you and they say, you are a spy, you are a spy, you're a spy. Listen, after 365 days, if you survive, you will believe that you are a spy. And that's what tends to happen in situations like this. You cannot succeed. And parents, some of the African parents, excuse me, I don't know what it's like in other cultures, but some of the African parents, when you say to your child, you are stupid, you were never about to this, you were just like your father. These are the mistakes that we keep making because we have to take responsibility for the information we're feeding these young kids at such an impressionable age. You will be you were just like your father. But what you're saying, you're not saying it in a positive way. What you're trying to do is reaffirm to that child that they're going to be a nobody. You know, you'll never succeed. And guess what happens? The child starts looking for ways. Let me not jump deep into it. So 148,000 times you're told no. So that becomes your mindset. I can't do this. I cannot do that. And if you're in a relatively decent home, a relatively positive home, according to this book and according to other psychologists, you're told no between 10,000 to 50,000 times in your impressionable years. So imagine the balance. Imagine being told that you cannot do this versus you can do this. 3 times more. So naturally, your self-esteem, your belief in yourself, the courage, the ability to take on the world is already dampened before someone's a child. What you have to accept and understand is we have unlimited potential, which means you're capable of doing pretty much anything that you desire, apart from flying, of course, because there are other laws that plays a part. So don't say TJ told me I can do everything and you jump off a bridge and you try and fly, because listen, there are other laws that supersede certain laws, such as the law of gravity, which means you will. So you're capable of achieving anything, but fundamentally it's based on what you say and what you tell yourselves. As I mentioned before, not to be disrespectful, you are exactly where you are today because of what you believe, the ideas you believe, the thoughts, the notions that you've been fed and you've chosen in some cases, and in some cases been forced to believe. So once you understand that the mind is a human computer, so look at it from this point, and this is what Shard Helmstetter describes. Once you understand that the mind is a computer, such as the screen is the visual, the screen is what shows what's inside the computer. So number 1 is the screen, number 2 is the keyboard, number 3 is the floppy disk. So remember that the screen is what is displayed. Number 2 is the keyboard. That's where we put in information. That's where our senses come into play. So it could be you believe that you are poor. You believe you will never make it. You believe you are dumb. You believe you will never amount to anything. You put that information, you type it in through your internal keyboard, through your thoughts, through your ideas, through your beliefs, and it's displayed on the screen for the world to see. And then the floppy disk is where it's stored. Now, I know we don't use floppy disks anymore, but it shows how old this book is. You might say your hard drive or your external drive, but Shard still talks about a floppy disk as well. But I hope you guys understand the concept and the notion of what he's saying. So, the computer screen is what the world sees. which is the manifestation, which is the display of what's been typed into the keyboard, such as your laptop. If I type information into Word, that displays on my computer what I've typed into a Word document. Number three, it's the floppy disk, which is the hard drive, which is the external drive, which is where we store all of these beliefs. So until you take a big massive hammer and you smash that floppy disk, or you destroy that external hard drive, you will carry on computing the same information, the same beliefs, the same notions, the same ideas about yourselves for the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and nothing will ever change, and you wonder why you will receive the same thing over and over and over again. And we see that happening in families. There are some people who believe just based on their grandmother. So I'm over here in America, and we get a lot of people saying, hey, I'm the first person to even think about going to college. And there are some people saying, hey, I can never go to college, which they call university, which is the weirdest thing in the world. But hey, I can never go to college because my mum didn't go to college, my dad didn't go to college, my grandma didn't go to college, my entire generation have never been to college/university. What makes me think I can? And remember, that's the same floppy disk, that's the same hard drive that your notions, your ideas, your thoughts have been put in. So I want to ask you a simple question, actually. How many of us, and you know what, feel free to indicate when you're watching this video or to just post the comments, how many of us have these conversations with ourselves, such as, who says this to themselves, even when they make a small mistake? Oh gosh, I'm so dumb. I'm so stupid. I'm not so smart. This isn't my day. Nothing ever goes right. Once you understand that there is an internal dialogue, you are always having a conversation with yourself. See, you have to start to understand that there's the subconscious mind and there's the conscious mind. The conscious mind is what's happening right now. I made a conscious decision to turn on my camera, to pick up this book and to talk to you about this book. But when you're in the shower, for example, when you're enjoying a nice lovely shower and there's a dialogue in your mind, there are thoughts drifting in your mind, or there are times that you are conscious of these thoughts and there are times that you're not conscious of these thoughts. And a lot of times our beliefs are made when we're not conscious of these thoughts. Because look, according to Shard, I think it's chapter 3, he talks about how our mind works in channels and works in links. So think about this. What the mind does is it looks for opportunities to attach a new idea or a new thought to an old idea. And it's the most craziest thing in the world. And once you understand that, I hope and I suggest you start rerouting and digging out all the past and all the negative beliefs that you've had about yourself. But we'll come back and talk about how to do that. But hey, listen, what he says is this, and what this book reiterates is this. Our brain has to attach, or our mind has to attach a new idea to an old idea. So where you believe that you are dumb, and then you make a mistake and you're on the street, for example, and you make a mistake and you say, oh my God, I'm so dumb. Or someone says to you, do you know what, TJ, you are so dumb. Guess what happens? Your brain then has to find something that it has to link it to in your mind. So what that does is it doubles down on the idea that you're dumb. And we keep saying things, people keep feeding us. You get your exam grades, or your teacher says, hey, TJ, you're never going to amount to anything. You're not so smart. And it looks for another path, it looks for something else that you've already believed about yourself, that you're dumb, and guess what? It attaches it. So you have to think about it such as a root of a tree, for example. So what you've done is you've now made it steadfast. You've now grounded that thought of I'm so dumb, because it's been, let's say, you've added more and more and more and more to it, and your brain starts to believe it, and your mind starts to go to action to make sure it produces what you believe. You see, the subconscious mind, as powerful as it is actually a slave. It's our slave. We are the master over our subconscious mind. So essentially, it does whatever you ask it to do. Which means the more attention you pay to it, the more attention you pay to that thought, your subconscious will make it happen. So when you say, I'm so dumb, I can't make any money, I don't know anything about money, guess what? It looks for other opportunities to add to that layer, such as when you're making a cake, you're adding more and more to that layer. It bakes the perfect cake of negativity, and guess what? You eat that negativity, you eat that cake, and that's what you start to believe about yourself. You see, the human mind is a sponge. So it soaks in everything that you constantly feed it. So if you're feeding it negative words, in fact, let me find a chapter here where, oh, in fact, there we go. I just opened a random page. Okay, so I want you guys to identify and be completely honest. I'm going to read some of these out. So who says this to themselves? So I'll read this section here, and this is page 51. It says, here are some examples of frequently used negative self-talk. So it says, as you read them, see if you know anyone who says something familiar. What I want you to do is let me know if you say some of these. I can't remember names. Oh, it's going to be another one of those days. I don't know if it's going to work. Nothing ever goes right for me. I'm so clumsy. I don't have talent. I'm not creative. Everything I eat goes to my waste. Today just isn't my day. I can never afford the things I want. I already know I won't like it. I already know I won't make it. I already know I can't do this. I never have enough time. Listen, once you understand what I'm trying to explain to you is what you say. You don't even have to externalize it. You don't even have to say it out loud, because your brain, your mind is picking up these things and they're saying, oh, well, if TJ says these things all the time, then it must be true. Therefore, as the subconscious, as the slave, what they do is they go out, doesn't physically go out, but they go out and they find a way to make it true. So if you repeat the same thing to yourself over and over and over again, it starts to become true. It's not one of those wishy-washy things. It's a fact. Your brain, your mind is a sponge. It takes in whatever you give into it. So whatever you feed it, and that's why you see any successful person, any person that talks about wealth, that talks about success, the one thing that they drum on about is reading books, because it's the one way to open your mind to a different perspective. You see, the worst part is we pass our thoughts on to other people. So as I mentioned before, as parents, as friends, we pass on our negative thoughts to other people, and it's not intentional. It's what you believe in that moment. So a friend comes to you with a business idea and says, what do you think? And you say, well, no, I don't think you should do it. It's not based on a logical, it's not based on a rational sense. It's based on something internal within yourself that is, hey, what makes him think he can run a business? So we form our standards, we form our opinions, and then we pass on those opinions onto other people. But that's the biggest mistake you can ever make, because we haven't cleansed ourselves of our mindsets and where our information comes from. So this book goes on to talk about the 5 different levels of self-talk. So remember, self-talk is that internal dialogue that we have with ourselves, and it goes on to explain that it's also an external dialogue that we have with ourselves. We are constantly in conversation with ourselves. We're constantly in dialogue with ourselves. Hey, I'm the greatest. Hey, I'm the best. To some people, it might sound like that wishy-washy, mumbo-jumbo stuff, but I'm telling you, it will change your life, because you have to rewire the self-belief and the self-talk. So let's go back to the 5 levels of self-talk. As you guys can hear, my voice is going. I hope the next video I do is going to be a lot better, but yeah, my voice is really going, and I should really be drinking my hot chocolate. Number 1, there's the entry-level self-talk, which is where most of us are, is I can't do this. I could never do that. Today is not my day. It's those statements I just read a second ago. That's the most dangerous one, because that's where we all are. And most of us don't know how negative the thoughts we have about ourselves are. And we don't understand that if we don't deal with them, the same cycle is going to carry on and carry on and carry on. And we're going to pass it to our friends. We're going to pass it to our kids. And we're going to pass it on for generations and generations. But it stops today with you. The understanding, the acceptance that you don't know everything is where the change starts to happen. So number 2 is I need to. So number 1 is, remember, I can't do this. I could never do this. Today's not just my day. I don't remember names. This is the negative. I can't. Number 2 is I need to. I should do. You see, where this is also still dangerous is it identifies that there's a problem. So you've identified that there's a problem, but it offers no solution. So you're still negative self-talk. I should go to the gym. So technically what you're saying to your mind is, I know there's a weight problem. I know there's an issue with my health, but I'm not going to do anything about it because I haven't found the solution to it. What you need to do is get to the place where you make a decision to actually do it. So that decision starts with a constant conversation with yourself. Again, I have to reiterate, it's not the mumbo jumbo that you hear being thrown around left, right, center. It's a simple conversation with your mind's engine that determines and decides every action that we carry out. So what we want to do is replace that thought, replace the idea, replace the notions, replace the concepts that we've been fed. So number 3 is you make the decision to change. For example, it gives a description about someone that smokes, for example. You start with the conversation of, I no longer smoke, I no longer overeat, I no longer delay, I no longer do this. These are the reprogramming steps, because what happens is your mind accepts that you do not do this anymore. Yes, of course, you're still going to have the desire to smoke. Of course, you're still going to have the desire to be lazy. You're still going to have the desire to not go to the gym. But you're starting the process of reprogramming. You're starting the process of having a new conversation with yourself, because the only way you can improve yourself is by changing the old programming. So what we need to do is take you from point A, which is the negative programming, to point B, which is the new programming. But between A and B is going to be an entire journey, but it starts with the conversation you start to have with yourself. Then the fourth one is I am. And this is what the most powerful one is, and you will start to pick up. And when you speak to people like myself, when you speak to people who have been in this let's say arena for quite some time, you will never hear me saying things like, I can't do that. I believe I can take over the bloody world. I genuinely believe I can do it, and I have that conversation to reaffirm it every single day to myself. So when I say things like, I am the most effective speaker, I am powerful, I am confident, I am a money-making machine, let me give you my reaffirmance that I have every single time before I get on stage, and every single morning, in fact. It says, my name's TJ Atkinson. I am the best public speaker. I earn over £50,000 from every presentation. I am my stage. I am my presentation. I am one with my stage, and the stage is one with me. You see, that's another level. That is another level, and that takes time, of course, to get to that sort of level. But this is where I want you guys to get to, because the only way you can change where you are now is by reprogramming. So you can't destroy your old thoughts, because they're in your thoughts. That's what your mind engine operates and works on. What you need to do is get to the place that you replace it. And by replacing it, you have to get to the place where you choose and you discover what the issues are in your life. You say, hey, do you know what? I'm not a great husband. And the reality is, you might not be a great husband, you might not be a great wife, you might not be a great boyfriend. Once you identify what those things are, then you can go to work by reprogramming those patterns already in your head. You see, there is no such thing as motivation. I didn't put this video out to motivate you. I believe motivation is a fallacy. I believe it's false. I believe it's a falsehood. There is no such thing as motivation. I believe there's such thing as reprogramming, and that's why we see it all the time. You might go to an event, you're pumped up, it's rah rah rah, it's great, but guess what? That person has inspired you. So enthusiasm comes from the word enthusi, which comes from the word breathe. So it means that when you go to an environment where the speaker breathes enthusiasm or life into you, once he leaves, guess what? He takes his spirit back. So that's why you notice you might go to an event, you're really pumped up, you're so excited, you feel like your life has changed. 2 hours later, you're back to your same self. Why? Because they didn't spend time to reprogram you. And guess what? Unless you're paying someone hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds, they don't have the time to reprogram you. And that's why you have to do it yourself by picking up books like this that will change your life. There is no such thing. Don't wait for someone to motivate you to change, because it wouldn't last. The only motivation that can last is internally. And that's why you hear people, I think it's Peter Drucker that said, motivation is like showering, you need it every day. But in fact, I take it a little bit further. Motivation is like breathing, you need it every single second, which means you need to be feeding yourself with new information, with new ideas about who you are every single second. Look, I'm going to round up so I can rest my voice. But again, as we go further into doing other books as well, it will be a lot longer, it'll be a lot more interactive. It will probably be a Facebook Live, but I really just wanted to keep my word. As I said, I am on holiday and my voice is gone, but I wanted to keep my word and just start this year off with a bang. And every single person in this group, under no circumstance should you not get this book. Order it on Amazon, get a second-hand copy if you need to get a second-hand copy. And for some of the people, I spend a good few £100 a year buying this book. So it's a commitment I made to myself. I believe it was around 2011, 2012. I said every single year I will give away about 100 of these. This year I've given away about 30. Well, last year I gave away about 30. And I'm going to carry on doing the same thing. But if you're in the book club, get this book, because we will be discussing them further chapters as well. I hope it's giving you enough meat to start off with. But as I said, I'm going to get myself better, get my voice ready, and we're going to hit the next month with a big bang. Grab this book. I can't wait to see you guys. Cheers. Bye bye.